Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Commissioners and staff, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you all to the January 9th, 2025 City of Roseville Planning Commission meeting. At this time, please put all electronic devices on silent. Agendas are available at the end of the staff table. If you plan to speak at tonight's meeting, please complete a blue speaker card and return it to a staff member. The speaker cards are on the lectern in front. As a reminder, Planning Commission meetings are broadcast live and replayed throughout the week on Consolidated Communications and Comcast. I will now call the meeting to order. Jess, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Brashears?
Here.
Commissioner Covington? Here. Commissioner Jensen is absent excused. Commissioner Randolph?
Here.
Commissioner Unidad?
Here.
Vice Chair Hagen-Jost?
Here.
And Chair Pryor.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, please begin staff introductions.
Good evening, everyone. Jess Sawyer, Recording Secretary.
Good evening, Commissioners. Joe Speaker, Assistant City Attorney.
Good evening, Chair Pryor and Commissioners. Greg Bitter, Planning Manager.
Good evening, Chair Pryor and Commissioners. Derek Ogden, Senior Planner.
Good evening, Commissioners. Shelby Maples, Associate Planner.
And good evening, Commissioners. Matt Todd, Principal Engineer.
Thank you, everyone. Next, we have public comments. The public comment period is a time for anyone who would like to address the Commission on any item not on tonight's agenda. When addressing the Commission, please state your name for the record and limit your items to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to address the Commission on any item not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, I will close the public comment period. Next, we have the consent calendar, which consists of routine items which may be approved under one motion as recommended in the staff reports. However, each item may be considered separately upon a request by the audience, Planning Commission, or staff. Tonight's consent calendar consists of 4 items. Item 5.1, minutes from the December 12, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Item 5.2, North Industrial Plan Area, Parcel CO-41, COTC Shops 2 and Extension 290 Roseville Parkway, file number PL 240969. Then item 5.3, which is North Industrial Plan Area Parcel 50, Roseville 80 Buildings 5 and 7 Modification Extension, 7901 Foothills Boulevard. That's file number PL 24-1002. Then we have item 5.4, which is Southeast Roseville Specific Plan Parcel 5, Office Condo Map Conversion, 2140 Professional Drive, file number PL 24-1014. Is there anyone on the Commission or in the audience who would like to pull an item off the consent calendar for separate discussion?
Sir, we understood there were to be 6 items on this agenda tonight.
There will be, yes.
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 Did you list them?
I haven't listed them yet. I will. Is there anyone in the Commission who or in the audience who would like to pull an item off the consent calendar for separate discussion?
Chair Pryor. As to item 5.2, I am abstaining from voting on that item due to its proximity to a property I lease. Though not a legal conflict of interest, I am abstaining on voting on item 5.2.
Thank you, Commissioner Unidad. All right, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as listed?
And just to clarify, that motion would include item 5.2, Commissioner Unidad abstaining on that item alone, 5.2, just for when that motion is made.
Thank you.
Chair Pryor, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Randolph has made the motion and Commissioner
Covington.
has seconded the motion. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Commissioner Unidad? Yes. Commissioner Covington?
Yes.
Commissioner Randolph?
Yes.
Commissioner Brashears?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hagen-Joes?
Yes.
Chair Pryor?
Yes. The motion is approved. There is a 10-day appeal period for items 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4. Next on the agenda is requests and presentations. Before we begin, I want to review the meeting procedures. First, we will hear the staff presentation. Then I will take questions from the Commission. Then I will open the public hearing. The applicant will make a presentation. Then I will open the public comment, and the public will have an opportunity to speak. Then I will close the public comment. If needed, the applicant will be given an opportunity to provide a rebuttal, and then I will close the public hearing. The Commission may ask questions of staff, and finally, the Commission will consider this item and make a decision based on the information provided in the report from staff and the testimony presented during tonight's hearing. Item 6.1 is a request that the Planning Commission approve a design review permit, flood encroachment permit, and tree permit for 705 Sunrise Avenue. For the record, file number PL24-0812. Shelby, may we have her presentation, please?
Commissioner Pryor, before Shelby jumps in on the presentation, I just want to make a comment. You do have a comment letter. We've received several comment letters on your desk and in the email we sent yesterday to you all. One of the requests was to not necessarily continue the item, but to continue the public review period for the mitigated neg deck. There was the mitigated neg deck that's associated with this project was subject to a 30-day public review period. There was a request to continue that for 15 days to allow the public to 15 additional days to comment on the project. As I told the requester this, and I want to make sure that that the Commission knows this, while the Commission can continue this item tonight, you cannot. The public comment period is done. It ended. So to provide additional public comment on the CEQA document, the mitigated negative declaration, the Commission would have to direct us to go back and reopen a new public noticing process. So we'd open it back up for a 30-day public notice. So that is at your discretion. I just want to make sure you know that. And obviously, as I told the requester, the Commission's going to have multiple options tonight. The Commission could continue the item and tell us to go back and start from scratch. The Commission can hear the item, and at the end of the public hearing and all the testimony, you can tell us you want additional time. Or at the end of the public hearing, you can render a decision. So I just wanted to make that clear before we do the.
Could you repeat the third option? So at the end,
you can hear the item, take all the public testimony, and render a decision. You can make a motion and vote on the item.
Ask for more time, I think you said.
Pardon me?
You said ask for more time.
That was the second option.
That's the second option, is to ask for. So without the public hearing, just flat out move to send us back to start over now. Hear all the public testimony, consider the item, and continue it and allow more time for folks to comment, or consider the item. Those are the three options.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure that was clear at the beginning of the process. So
About what you just said, or not?
There'll be an opportunity during the public comment portion. Yeah.
All right, Shelby, may we hear your presentation, please?
Of course. Good evening, Chair Pryor and Commissioners. My name is Shelby Maples, and I have a presentation for you on the Sunrise Office Center project. The project site is located at 705 Sunrise Avenue on a parcel that is approximately 2.63 acres in size. The parcel is already partially developed with a 4,700 square foot medical office building and associated parking area, and the proposed project would be located in the vacant portion of the site. The site project area is surrounded by a Dutch Brothers to the south, the existing medical office, a community care facility known as the Terraces of Roseville to the east, Kirby Creek to the north, and then Sunrise Avenue. The entitlements requested as part of the project include a design review permit to allow the construction of a 7,300 square foot medical office building with associated site improvements, which includes expanding the existing parking lot to a total of 80 spaces, a flood encroachment permit to allow construction of permitted accessory uses within Kirby Creek, and a tree permit to allow the removal of 3 protected oak trees. This is the site plan for the proposed project. You can see in yellow the location of the proposed building, which is in line with that existing medical office building. And it's located as far as from the floodway boundary as the parcel can accommodate. The site will be accessed from the existing road off of Sunrise Avenue and use the existing drive aisle for that adjacent medical office building. The parking area is designed to connect to the existing circulation system, provide adequate clearance for trash pickup, and meet the minimum parking standards established by the zoning ordinance. For both buildings, the total square footage is 12,000 square feet of medical office, which requires 1 space per 150 square feet. So 80 parking spaces is actually the minimum requirement for this site. It is also noted that along the eastern boundary, there are 11 parking spaces on the parcel that are reserved for use of the terraces, which does affect the potential circulation pattern. Here are the elevations for the proposed project and as well as a rendering. As you can see on the top, which is the south elevation, the building is sloped due to the grade of the site, with 30 feet being the tallest the building is towards Sunrise Avenue. The building is technically 2 floors with a ground floor and a first floor. However, because of the base flood elevation, the ground floor is unoccupied crawl space that allows water to pass through. On the rendering, you can see that there are grates on the exterior of the building. All of the actual activity in the building will occur on that first floor. As far as the design of the building, it uses a gray and brown color palette with stone veneer and metal accents, and overall the design meets the intent of the community design guidelines. The project also requests a flood encroachment permit. As you can see by the blue area on the slide, the site is partially encumbered by a floodway zone. The zoning ordinance does have standards and rules for what can be developed in the floodway. And for this project, this includes grading, construction of the parking area, and drainage improvements. All of these items are permissible with the approval of a flood encroachment permit. So as part of the project, there are no new structures which would inhibit flow proposed within the floodway, and the building is that maximum distance away. The project was reviewed by the Public Works Floodplain Management Division, which recommended conditions of approval for the flood encroachment permit. Some highlights include that the building will be built with flood-resistant materials, all activity areas will be above the base flood elevation, and the site is designed to not result in off-site increases in water surface elevation. With the conditions of approval, the project meets the requirements. Also included as part of the project is a tree permit. The project proposes the removal of 3 protected trees, totaling 94 inches of required mitigation. There are also 2 non-protected oaks, which are under 6 inches, and 1 non-native tree proposed for removal. These trees were evaluated as part of the project, and given many of the constraints for the site, such as the development standards requiring a minimum amount of parking, the existing improvements that the project ties into, as well as a lot of the underground utilities such as existing storm drains and proposed stormwater quality features, it was found that removing the trees was the most likely option as they would be significantly encroached upon by the development. So proposed mitigation for the project includes partial replanting of native species, partial replanting of non-native species, as well as remaining in lieu payment for remaining inches. As part of the project, an initial study mitigated negative declaration was prepared. The document includes mitigation measures for biological resources, cultural resources, and tribal cultural resources. During that 30-day review period, staff received 2 comments, including in standard advisory measures from the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, as well as 1 neighbor comment. The neighbor comment does cite traffic and drainage concerns and tree removals and does request that longer review period. It is noted in that Planning Commission memorandum that we gave to you. The majority of the comments were more general project-related comments, but as appropriate, the comments did receive response as far as the mitigated negative declaration. As far as public outreach, early notification of the project, environmental document availability, and public hearing notice were posted to the Arcona website, and notices were mailed to neighbors and property owners within 300 feet and published in the Press Tribune. Prior to publication of the staff report, staff did correspond with one neighbor, sharing details about the project as well as the project plans. Friday, January 3rd, staff heard from one of the neighbors, discussed the project, and informed them about the Planning Commission hearing. The neighbor sent in comment letters, as well as hosted a community meeting within the terraces of Roseville next door on Monday of this week. According to the neighbor, approximately 34 residents of the terraces attended their internal community meeting to discuss the project, and then staff had a follow-up call with the residents on Tuesday. These comments included concerns about traffic and emergency access and the removal of the trees. So the letters that were provided to staff between the publication in the staff report and the hearing this evening were provided to the Planning Commission. There's also a memorandum that addresses some of those concerns. As far as some of the comments, the project was reviewed by Engineering and Fire with regard to access and traffic. And because the project is consistent with the general plan land use designation, it was determined that no traffic study was warranted. And as previously discussed regarding the tree permit, it was found that to meet the development standards and accommodate significant site constraints, it was found that the trees would most likely not survive and need to be removed as part of the project. So in conclusion, the project is consistent with the general plan, zoning ordinance, community design guidelines, and the required findings for the entitlements can be made. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission take the actions listed on this slide and in the staff report. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Shelby. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff at this time? I have a question for staff regarding the location of the building. Were there other alternative locations brought forward or discussed during the planning process to avoid interfering with the mature trees?
I think that I don't believe so. And if I could have John pull up Exhibit D. This is something that we've been looking at as these comments have come in, especially the location.
Slide 3.
Yeah. So can you zoom in, John, on the site plan? It's a little bit hard. I think it might be a little bit hard to see on the left-hand side of the slide. I apologize. I gave John these exhibits at about 5:45, and now that's perfect. Zooming in, can you just scroll down a little? So you can see the gray hashed lines. There's a gray hashed line at an angle up on the upper right-hand side, and then there's a gray hashed line that leads right in the middle of the drive aisle and skirts the western portion of the building. Those are existing storm drain lines that serve the terraces and serve the rest of the surrounding development. So if you see where the building corners are, shifting that building to the north at all would require relocation of that storm drain line. Shifting the building to the west would require the relocation of that line. So I think early on in the discussion there was a acknowledgement that there's existing infrastructure that serves other properties, not this property, and so that kind of pinned down the envelope of where this building could be located. In addition to that, even if you relocated the 24-inch storm drain line, moving the building to the north, I don't think we felt comfortable supporting moving the building further or closer to the floodplain and further into the floodplain, which would require fairly significant re-engineering of the building to accommodate future floods. So I think that is something that probably early on was identified, is that there was a limited area that the building footprint could be located on this property.
But all of those things could eventually be, they could be re-engineered and redesigned.
Sure. Yeah, you can dig up all the infrastructure on the site and redevelop it. I mean, that's true. We typically, on infill projects, we typically don't do that. I think some of the concerns are is we don't know the implications, because if you can see, especially the 24-inch line, that serves the terraces. So you're going to have some type of interim. You're affecting other properties, and it seemed reasonable to us to keep the building out as far away from the floodplain as possible and not impact the existing underground infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, are there any other questions?
Well, if I could just follow up, just so that I get an understanding, in terms of the storm drain there, when that gets installed, I mean, is this something that there's like an easement that's placed on the property, or I mean, is it the
You mean when the building is constructed?
No, I'm talking about the existing storm drain that is there now. How did that come to be in that way on that parcel of property?
I'm sure. Well, at one time in the 70s, when a lot of the development around this area, 70s and 80s, when this area was developed, it was probably all one owner under one ownership,
okay.
one unified ownership, and so they didn't necessarily require an easement. This area has been parcelized because I think when did we think because the existing emergency medical building was originally an IHOP, and that's been. Did we recall? Is that the 80s?
12 years ago.
The IHOP was, I believe, constructed in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, for instance, the terraces, if the property owner decided to move the storm drain or do something in that regard, they would have to work something out with the terraces.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there'd be multiple parties to that they'd have to
okay.
work with. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. I will now open the public hearing. I would like to invite the project representative for this item to address the commission.
Hi, I'm Michelle Leyshot. I'm with Millennium Planning and Engineering, and I'm representing the project applicant. Tom Roman is the architect on the project, and he's here to answer any questions as well. We agreed to the conditions of approval, and we're available to answer any questions. I just wanted to emphasize the site constraints on this parcel. As they talked about, we have the storm drain running through the parcel from the terrace apartments. We have the parking easement on the east side. There is a 10-foot PUE on the south side, and there's a riparian area in Kirby Creek that we had to stay away from on the north side. So we're very constrained on where we can put the building, and we also have to meet the 80 parking spaces requirement. I'm sure Shelby can talk about, there really is not room to do a variance here because there's no off-site parking anywhere. So because of this, we hate to remove native oak trees, but there was really no other options on this project. We are mitigating it by putting in 7 new valley oaks, 1 live oak, and then 18 additional trees on the property. So I think in the end, it's going to be a very beautiful, nice project that everybody's going to enjoy. We had talked about possibly trying to save one of those oak trees, but it will be based on construction conditions and if the arborist thinks it's viable to keep it. Thank you.
Could you let us know which oak tree that is you're trying to say?
It is.
Of it?
It's on the one on the northwest side. So the one on the most left.
Okay. So there are 2 beside each other.
Yeah, so it would be the one on the left.
Okay.
That one we might be able to save.
Not possible to save both?
No.
Okay.
The other ones are in asphalt areas, and there's just no room to save it. If we saved any of those trees, it would probably reduce our parking by probably 25%.
Commissioners, are there any questions for the project representative at this time? All right, thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
I will now open the public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this item?
Yeah, you can just hand them up.
Please come to the podium, state your name, and you have 5 minutes.
I'm Jennifer Chapman. I'm the mysterious resident from the terraces. I'm the one that initially contacted Shelby. I moved there in June, so I haven't been there very long, but I did notice that the grass, was getting cut and there was heavy equipment and apparently there was soil testing, and this is how I first kind of started trying to find out what was happening, right across from our entrance. And I did have interaction with Shelby in November. It was actually before Thanksgiving, and I got the design drawings, but I didn't get any information along the way that the public process and the documents and everything was going to be available in early December. And so, we're all tenants. I used to own condos. I was sort of used to getting notices when I'm that close to a project, and my bad, I sort of forgot that I was not going to get notified that way. Like everybody, I was preoccupied with the holidays, but I did reach out again last Friday, and that's where I started to get the information and the deadlines and so forth. And, we had 34 people at this meeting. I mean, they literally got invited to a meeting with a notice on their door, their apartment door at 6 a.m. But there's interest. And, we actually have a little petition with another, 39 signatures. Some of them are probably the same. But we did also have a letter from our resident board of directors that hopefully you've received that, they're, 7 people who are basically representing the 200 residents that live there. This is a senior community. I wouldn't call it a care facility exactly. It's actually got 2 floors of assisted living and then 1 floor of independent living. These are people, a lot of them, there's a variety of medical conditions. But some people it's almost more like they're disabled vets. There's a variety of people in this population. Some of them are really confined to this environment, and this is really, their world. But it's such an obvious population to reach out to, and such an obvious group of people that is going to be affected and should have an opportunity for input. So that's why we are requesting this extended comment period, which it sounds like what you're saying is that you can't just extend it 15 days. You'd have to go back out for another 30 days. I don't fully understand that because I've been in a lot of federal government planning processes, and it seems like you can do it differently, but I don't know. I don't know how CEQA, all the local, constraints on doing that are. However, I'll just mention on that topic that, we also have an appeal process, and, we can pursue that as well. So those are other things that we'll be thinking about. And anyway, I guess I did want to say that, I don't know all the architectural, things. It is very beautiful, and appreciate all the, the attention to trying to kind of make it blend with the terraces and all of that. Kind of wondering if, since you do already have this space below, is there any, design options that involve parking underneath the building, underneath the structure? Don't know. Wondering about that diagram of the floodplain, because that whole sort of west, northwest part of the creek doesn't seem to be in the floodplain, which doesn't make sense. In fact, we have a big puddle in that area that didn't fall in the floodplain. It is definitely a floodplain. We definitely have flooding, going on, and percolation. We're concerned about all that hardscaping and the lack of percolation and all of that. But those oak trees are definitely part of a little ecosystem. There's turkeys and squirrels and river otters and beavers and all kinds of things that to the people that live there are, special part of the experience. So I have been able to bring a couple of folks with me, so you'll just get to hear from a few of the other people that do live there. But we are really hoping, again, this thing with the traffic, it does seem to be based on, having no traffic study. People will tell you, and you're going to get a lot of, you saw comments already, there are ambulances and fire trucks there sometimes multiple times a day. The Dutch Brothers traffic that has added so much cars to this little entry road that we have is creating a big impact, turning on to Sunrise. I heard the phrase suicide lane today. I hadn't heard that. That was a nurse, a home health nurse from Sutter that was visiting one of the people I was talking about this project with today. She was talking about, just turning in left on Sunrise. And anyway, it's something that we would really love for the planning commissioners to come out and get to really know the place and the site and the designers as well, just to understand kind of the big picture, because there's all this other, potential development that's going to go on. There's other vacant portions. It's odd to have high density residential, backing up to this, to this other zone. It's a juxtaposition. So there's, I think, a lot, and people are interested, but it takes time to absorb. This is a 200-page, environmental document. I don't know if you all have had time to read it over the holidays, but, we just found out about it last Friday. And so we'd really like to be able to read about it. There's an enormous amount of wisdom and knowledge and site-specific experience from the people that have lived there. Some of them have been there for a while. So anyway, I don't know. I've probably gone to my 5 minutes at this point. I don't know. Do we have a clock that tells me how much time?
You have 30 seconds left.
32 seconds. All right.
Sorry, we're 30 seconds over.
Okay. Oh, 30 seconds. Anyway, thank you very much. And thank you so much to Greg for meeting with us by conference call. It was amazing. And
excuse me. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to come forward?
Good evening. My name is Sherry Bradley. I am, excuse me, a resident at 707 Sunrise. I've been there for almost 5 years. It's not just a suicide lane. You do take your life in your hands if you're an active driver or if you're a visitor coming to see a resident there. We have 90 staff that come and go on 2 shifts. Our director was involved in a car totaled accident out there during his tenure there. We're a little resentful that the other senior residence on Madden Lane, called the Regency, has a traffic break. We're well aware that you cannot put another signal so close to an existing one, but a traffic break would be a benefit to anybody that introduces more traffic to our location. They're talking about 80 parking places. That's a lot of come and go. We have moving vans, we have large delivery trucks for food, we have garbage trucks that make regular exits. As I say, the staff, as well as the residents, and the rehab staff that come to treat people that are there, are all people that have to use that driveway. And it is a major hazard without a traffic break out there. Any question for me? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to come forward from the public?
I don't know how to get this thing up.
Problem, take your time. You're fine.
Oh, the desk thing would.
I have absolutely no mechanical skills. My name is Jerry Fuller, and I live at the Terraces. I've only been there since May, but I've almost been killed several times at that intersection there, turning left, going down to Kirby Way. But the thing that I want to talk about is the aesthetics and the quality of life at Roseville. I've been told a lot of people there, about 207 average there as residents, and quite a few of them, I don't know, it changes, but probably a fourth of them, maybe a little bit more, are there. They don't have cars, they really don't have family in the area, and their only access to outside is walking around. And it's been referred to, or inferred, we have a lot of wild animals there. I don't know if any of you know that. We have fox and wild turkeys and squirrels and otters and a bunch of things that you can sit out front and walk right on the street in front of the terraces. And at night you hear them kill each other. I'm on the east side, and I have my door open quite often, and you hear a scream every now and then of somebody killing something. But it's a fantastic area for people that have no cars. I have a car. But people that don't, they're out there in their electric wheelchairs, their electric scooters, and their walkers, walking around, walking up and down, going over to Dutch Brothers. And it's their only access, really, for outside living. And it's the extra traffic. I mean, right now, you ought to come there sometime, and watch that Dutch Brothers. I mean, they have 2 lanes that go in there, and sometimes it actually, it goes out into the street. It's that many cars, and which is fine. We're learning to live with it, but additional cars is unbelievable. And we have sometimes up to 5 fire trucks and ambulances that come a day. I've actually been to the emergency room in an ambulance 4 times, and I paid the $351 for the fire truck. But as a result, we hate to see more traffic come there because it lowers the quality of the safety of people going on the street, the sidewalks that are currently there, just to get out, get some fresh air. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Whoops, excuse me. Hello. My name is Sheila Dorlaws, and I don't think I've ever seen so many gloomy faces. You all look like you're listening very attentively, but please don't be bored because this is very, very, very closely related to us. Now, I don't know how many of you have elderly family. Any of you have moms and dads? How many of you value your work time? Your work time. Well, we have a lot of residents who have their families that come in to take them to the doctor, to bring them back. I had one family tell me it took me 9 minutes, Sheila, to get out on Sunrise. 9 minutes. 9 minutes doesn't seem like a long time, but unfortunately, a lot of our residents cannot afford an ambulance, which is $300 or $400 a trip. So their families come and assist them. Well, if you've had a heart attack or your heart's beating, you have no oxygen, and you're in deep pain, 9 minutes seems like a very, very long time, a very, very long time. So I hope that when you take everything into consideration, you will consider our community, how many people live there, and what it means to us to have as much traffic flow as we can have. 80 spaces is a lot of traffic, a lot of traffic. When you say you're going to have 80 parking spaces, I was shocked. I expected 40 or 50, but 80 is a lot. And that's a lot of traffic added to 2 little short lanes. You have Dutch boys, you have people that come in for their coffee. This may affect their business. Who's going to stop when you're rushing to work and you want a quick cup of coffee and you only have 30 minutes? It's taking you 45 or 50 minutes to get into Dutch boy. How many families will come to our establishment looking for a place for mom or dad, and they say, gee, it takes me 25 minutes to get here, 25 minutes to get out? I think it's really going to affect the 2 locations that are there. The flood issue. Now, I don't know where this is directed, but if it's anywhere near the creek, I can tell you there is debris all over. There is falling limbs. It just gets really backed up. So the city's going to have to come out and keep that cleaned all the time. And they're going to have to do a lot of cleaning because we already have a semi-flood condition. I think one of the girls mentioned that there was water, a lot of accumulation when it rained. I'm an American Native Indian, so little squirrels matter to me, trees matter to me, little birds matter to me. So I hope that when you take into consideration our situation, you'll be merciful, you'll be respectful of elderlies, and give us a break, and at least do a more extensive traffic check, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to come forward? All right, seeing none, I will now close the public comment period. Commissioners, are there any additional questions for the applicant? Comments?
For the applicant, no.
Or for staff?
I do just have a few questions. I think this one's probably for staff. So when the initial traffic study was done, it was based on a medical facility going on this site, right? I mean, it was zoned.
So this particular project did not require a traffic study, and I'll let Matt jump in.
Right.
From the big picture, if you recall, when we did the general plan update back in 2020, we did an environmental impact report for the entire city, where we looked at all of the general plan land uses. And the result of that general plan update and the EIR, the reason we did the EIR is so we could tier off of that document. So we identified land uses and we allocated a certain number of trips for different land uses. So business professional was plugged in, so many acres generate so many square feet of office, medical office. So trips were located through the city. So that traffic study and that general plan update, by identifying this site, basically it set us up so that if a project came in the future, such as this one, and it was consistent with the land use, the general plan land use, it was considered that the trips had been analyzed in that traffic model run that was done with the general plan.
Right, that's what I'm getting at.
So the trips generated by this project are baked in, and Matt can talk about the details, but it's baked into our traffic and overall city traffic analysis. So we're expecting, the city's road system is at some point in time expecting these trips. They're just not there yet. And as Matt and I talked about this afternoon, one thing that it's important to make clear: any infill development anywhere in the city. We don't have a lot of vacant land all throughout the city, but we do have I guess we do have a lot of vacant land scattered throughout the city. But as infill projects come in that are consistent with the general plan land use designations, whether it's residential, commercial, office, vacant land, you're going to see more cars on the road. That's just a matter of fact. But we do have land, and that's all been allocated for future development. So it's not unexpected. I hope that, but there's not a specific so. Yeah. When we say traffic study.
No, I understand there's not one for this project, but when the general plan traffic study.
Traffic is always being analyzed in the city, yeah.
This site
has been business professional for 30 years.
That's what I was getting at.
And through multiple general plan updates, multiple city traffic model runs, there have been trips expected to be generated from this site at some point in the future.
Based on not residential, but
based on business professional, based on office or medical office
or medical
that, yeah.
to that degree.
Yeah, and in addition to that, as all our projects, we get to the end of the project review, we get to the planning commission, we don't talk about a lot of how we got here, right? So the project was submitted in May and has gone through several reviews, a couple different revisions. And our fire staff have also reviewed this for emergency access. Not just Matt and development engineering looking at it for typical traffic circulation and issues with normal vehicular traffic. But our fire marshal, looks at this to make sure, because they have a good idea as to what kind of services they need to provide and whether there's enough access, circulation, they can get their equipment in, and if it's going to cause an issue, they would say if they said, hey, by putting this project in, we're not going to be able to serve the terraces, we would have known that months ago. But that's not what our fire marshal has indicated to us in the review.
That was my next question. They were confident that one drive lane was wide enough.
Yeah, and I think it's with the 3 lanes. I'm jumping all over Matt, so I apologize. But with the 3 lanes, with the right turn, with the right exit out, the left exit out, and the entry lane, there's width so that if there is an emergency vehicle, hopefully all of us, when you see the flashing lights behind you, you pull over to the side of the road and there's room.
Yeah, by law. Okay, thank you. I think that answered 2 of my questions. And Shelby, I'm not sure if this is one if you can talk to or the project representative, but currently there's a path adjacent to the creek. Is that right? And that stays and.
Yes, so that's like an existing access area, but it is not touched by the project.
It's like a walking path or a.
I believe it's more of like a sewer access
it is? Okay.
path, but it is not.
The trees along the creek,
No.
in that whole area, okay.
No.
And then this is kind of Matt, maybe you can talk about this, but I know that Sunrise can be a challenge. Currently, if you're heading, I guess that would be north on Sunrise, take a left on Coloma, no U-turn allowed. Has that ever been looked at? Is it just too tight in that area?
It's probably too tight in that area. I'm sure it's been looked at, but I can't speak to specifics on that.
Okay.
But just kind of looking at the area, usually on a 4-lane arterial, it's tough to get left turns in just because of the turning radius needed to make that U-turn.
Yeah, I don't think it's very wide, but I was just wondering if that was an option, a possibility for, different ways to head the other way on Sunrise. Other questions? Thank you, Chair.
Right. I will remind the public that the public comment period is closed, but I will allow you one exception to make a brief comment or question and direct it to me, and I will, thank you.
I just want to mention, I think it's impossible to determine how much traffic is going to be coming in and out. It always depends on the popularity of the building, and it's going to be dental. Sometimes the location promotes population, sometimes it decreases it. You don't know how much traffic's going to be coming in and out of that building. There is just no way of possibly knowing. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And I will remind everyone that the public comment period is closed. Are there any other questions from the Commission? Commissioner Coburn.
To piggyback on Eric's questions regarding the traffic for the Dutch Brothers when that went in. I know every time we have one of these coffee shops go in, we always look closely at that, queuing systems and everything like that. So is there any way you guys can share anything with the audience here about what occurred when that Dutch Brothers went in regarding traffic or queuing?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, whenever, especially on the coffee shops, because of the traffic generation from those and how those queues can accumulate, we did look at that. We went through the standard study process and looked at multiple locations to see kind of what the queue rate would be for that. And it was designed, that's why it's got the dual lanes to order lanes to get in and through the Dutch Brothers. And the intent was to make sure that that queue doesn't spill too far, or it doesn't spill back onto that access road.
Thank you.
I guess I do have one more question, probably for Matt. Obviously, no traffic study done specifically for this project, but I'm assuming we've got other medical professional buildings. Do we have an idea roughly of what a dental practice of this size can generate on a trips?
So the way that's usually determined is through the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, their manual. And I did a quick calculation, and it's about 26 trips for an office building of 7,000 square feet
Throughout the course of a...
That's in the peak hour, and so that's about a trip every 2 to 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
And then just to kind of keep in mind, those trips are not necessarily one way, so that's a total trip, and it goes in and out.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Does any other commissioner have a question? All right, I have a few questions, if I could. My first question would be regarding the traffic. I did visit the site this afternoon. I spent quite a lot of time there, and I did have to turn left onto Sunrise, and I did have to wait quite a while to turn left onto Sunrise to get a break in the traffic. Is there a possibility of putting in, as one of the residents suggested, a traffic break of some kind or another measure?
So that was looked at by our traffic division and our public works department. When they get those requests, they do work with our fire department for health and safety through there, and it was determined it wasn't necessary at this time. In addition, if we do agree to do something like that, it's typically because the signal's backing up and it's a public roadway connecting, and we're unblocking a public roadway versus a private driveway.
Did it take into account that the Dutch Brothers is there with their amount of traffic they have?
Wasn't 2 lanes yet.
And when that evaluation was done by our traffic department, that was, I think, October of last year.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I also looked at the existing trees, and I studied the arborist report intently, and they are in good condition. I personally couldn't justify removing those trees, and I'm wondering if a parking variance could be made of any kind for this building, or a reduction in parking, which would also reduce traffic, or incentivizing alternate methods of transport. Since this is Sunrise, it has a lot of public transport on it. That's a cycle route. I don't know if there's other.
I mean, we've discussed the implications on that, and so there's a couple things going on. One is that the 80 parking spaces. Right now, 701, when it was constructed as a IHOP, as a restaurant, so it had a 1 per 100 space parking requirement. So it's overparked for what it is now. But with this new development, they're going to, I think one of the exhibits will show that there's a demo exhibit in your exhibits that show they're going to basically take out the asphalt right up the middle, repave that, reconstruct the entire parking lot so that there'll be 80 spaces to serve the two buildings, the 12,000 total square feet of medical uses. A parking reduction, typically we do parking reductions. There is an entitlement required to do a parking reduction, and there's two different types of parking reductions that we'll do. We'll do an individual use parking reduction where an applicant, a tenant, will come in and they will say, hey, our business is so unique that we don't need the parking that the zoning ordinance requires. So we have, our customers are here for 3 hours at a time. We only have space for 4 customers and we have 5 employees. So you want 20 parking spaces. We can only ever have 8 people in our building, 10 people in our building at a time. And so we'll look at that. We'll ask for data. We'll ask for data if they have other businesses. And so we use that to justify the parking reduction. The other type of parking reduction we do is shared parking, where we have instances where there's multiple tenants in a center. And this is the one that's most often. In fact, it's kind of what I think, was it in December or earlier? I think when we had it was December, where you did the a parking reduction for a restaurant, and we looked at how the whole center operated, and we did a big parking study to understand what times everybody was open, when there was parking demand, when there wasn't parking demand, to see how a new use fit. And so we'll do parking. I'd say we used to do them quite a bit for like small gyms or karate studios or bounce houses where they're going in business parks or industrial areas, and they operate 4:30 to 8 o'clock at night, where all the businesses operate during the day. So you can share the parking because the businesses in the center are offset. In this instance, we know 4,300 square feet of this new building is a family dentist. That's the higher end of the parking requirement for medical parking. And then there's the other the 1,400, so roughly 3,000 more square feet is right now they don't know who they're gonna, they don't know who the tenants are gonna be. It's kind of unknown. So we don't have enough specific data. I would say for the 4,300 square feet, we're not comfortable with them having any less parking than 1 per 150 square feet. I think that is going to generate the parking. The issue that we have without having that data, we don't know what the right parking amount is. So if for instance and I know the applicant mentioned this, and we've looked at this a little bit, that tree to the north, that one tree that's in the middle, the big tree that's in the middle of the site, there isn't a lot of room. And I think, John, can you go to the site plan, that little insert in Exhibit B with the site plan that shows the circulation around that part of the parking lot would be a help. I mean, I think we all know it's where the if you could zoom in on that lower right-hand side, hopefully this is an experiment using PDFs at the Planning Commission. So thank you for bearing with me. But so that tree is, so you can see the blue drive aisle going around there. And there's the 2 parking stalls just to the south. I think that tree is right where that curve is, just north of that internal radius, that internal 40-foot radius. So if you kept that tree, there wouldn't be any room to the north of that for a drive aisle or parking stalls. So you'd have to reconfigure it. So you'd probably lose everything from that little landscape area to the north. You'd have to relocate your trash enclosure and meet the Roseville solid waste requirements for trash enclosures. So we're thinking you'd probably lose somewhere between like 15 and 20 parking spaces, which is a 25% reduction, typical to what the applicant said. As staff right now, with the information we have, I'm not confident that that could not create an off-site parking issue later on. So I'm not sure that you wouldn't create a situation where they don't have enough parking to serve their own tenants, and that folks would be looking for off-site parking, either somewhere in the drive aisle, somewhere at the terraces, somewhere on Dutch Brothers property. And so when you ask the question, yes, a parking reduction is an entitlement that could be applied. We just didn't feel that we had enough information to make that call, to make that determination that it would losing 15 to 20 parking spaces, that we wouldn't be creating another problem for everybody down the road. So that was kind of our rationale for that.
So are you saying a parking reduction would lead to a reduction needed in the building footprint also?
I mean,
reduce the square footage to match the parking.
Obviously if they reduce the square footage of the building, then they could reduce. Then their parking requirement would go down, for sure.
Okay.
I just have a comment.
I just want to add to that, if we take out the parking spaces there, I'm not sure we could have a fire turnaround safely there. So that's another issue that would arise. Even if we reduced the building footprint and took out the parking spaces, the fire turnaround would not work. So.
To use the road in front of the terraces.
Pardon me?
Unless you tied into the road in front of the terraces as a turnaround.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I just want to comment on, I'm very familiar with this area because as a pastor, I've had members who have lived at the terraces and have gone and visited people on a regular basis. There's parking issues with the terraces in terms of when you go in, even during the middle of the day, most of those spots are filled. And most of the time, I end up having to go all the way on the back end of the building to find a parking spot. And so the idea that if there was less parking on this lot, that people could somehow drive around and find parking around, I just don't think that that's realistic, quite honestly.
Commissioner Brashears, did you have a question?
No, okay, at this time.
Anyone else have a question? Again, I was at the development and I did walk around the terraces and did notice there was quite a number of parking spaces available, but right at the rear. And I did notice that there are opportunities for the terraces to create more parking spaces, since they have a lot of just plain dirt landscaping pieces coming out in the parking that probably had trees at some time, but now are just wasted space. So, but that's not regarding this particular item. If there are no more questions or comments from the Commission, I would like to close the public hearing. And would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission adopt a Sunrise Office Center initial study mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and report program, and adopt the 4 findings of fact and approve the design review permit subject to 65 conditions of approval, adopt 2 findings of fact and approve the flood encroachment permit subject to 12 conditions of approval, adopt the 2 findings of fact and approve the tree permit subject to 6 conditions of approval.
Second.
Commissioner Brashears has made the motion and Commissioner Covington has seconded the motion. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brashears?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hagen-Joes?
Yes.
Commissioner Covington?
Yes.
Commissioner Randolph?
Yes.
Commissioner Unidad?
No.
And Chair Pryor.
No. The motion is approved. There is a 10-day appeal period for this item. Next on the agenda is Commissioner Staff Report. Are there any reports from staff?
Yeah, just a quick item. Tonight, there won't be a meeting on January 24th, and we're still determining what's going on in February. We're still trying to see how everything settles. We've got a few different projects that are percolating along, but we don't know when if they'll be ready for the first February meeting. But I will get an email out as soon as we have an idea, so you guys can plan your Februarys.
Are there any questions or
Just
comments
real
from the
quick,
commission?
you said 24, you're talking about the 23rd?
23rd,
This month.
sorry,
Okay,
23rd.
just
Yeah.
making sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Chair Hagenjost has made the motion, and Commissioner Brashears has seconded the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.